Okay, it's good to see. It's so good to see, and I see you've still got the badge. That's very, very
Yes.
good, and it's so good to see
What
you.
does it say?
It says U.S. hands off Iran, no sanctions. Okay, thank you. That'll set the tone a little bit for some of what we're going to talk with a dear friend of ours, that being Ardeshir Ommani. He and his wife are co-founders of the American-Iranian Friendship Committee. And they've had a great deal of influence. They understand very well that part of the world, Iran and places east and west of Iran, that region. And Ardeshir, on this, this is the 3rd of February 2011. We've just witnessed all the things going on a couple of weeks ago in Tunisia, now in Egypt, and so forth. We're going to be talking about that and other matters. So good to see you again, Ardeshir.
Thank you for inviting me.
My great good pleasure. Glad you could get in through the storm and through the icy conditions of the winter out there, and welcome very much. I spoke to you in the hall. I was transfixed as I watched, as much of the world did, what was going on in Egypt. Yesterday, with camels racing through the streets like something out of Lawrence of Arabia,
Yes.
of the Mubarak supporters answering the day-long protest by many of the citizens of Egypt for Egypt to follow upon Tunisia, with the president leaving and bringing some sort of new order to that major country. And I said I was absolutely, and then the implications for the region and beyond, I was absolutely so very surprised, as was much of the commentary by the people who were very studied in the area, that were on the media and so forth. And you said, no, you weren't particularly surprised, that it all fit into a sort of pattern. And I think it might be good for us to maybe kick off this program by my asking you, what was the pattern that you were able to discern and able to put that in a historical perspective, or a larger geographical, historical, political perspective?
Okay. When, the people are oppressed, the people are poor, they're in need of health care, they're in need of jobs, and they have housing problems. Education is a problem. They may live with it for some time.
Suffer long.
Yes.
Yeah.
But finally, they reached a conclusion that this life is not worth putting up with people in the governing place, in the ruling class, and they rise up. It's very natural to me.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Washington should have realized the problems of piling up. Political problems, domestic problems, economic problems, international problems, the problem of Israel and all the other Palestinian question, all will one day erupt, and the eruption began with Tunisia.
All right.
Yeah, and in Tunisia, Ben Ali, Zain al-Abidin resigned and gave a clue, gave an idea to the Arab countries. The people thought that if the people in Tunisia could do it, then we would be able to do it too.
Much of the commentary was along the lines that that might be a contagion that will sweep much of the Arab, Middle East, or broader world. And if I could add one little piece of obiter dictum by my director, the great Joshua Walensky, as we were discussing this program, setting up the cameras, he said, I said that they're going to ask for democracy. He said that would be a really nice thing if it could happen everywhere, including the United States of America. Because we do not have, in anything like a real functioning term, an economic just way of order, really, that we've been able to come upon as a human society. So it may have implications right back to the United States of America, that is not economically democratic.
Yes, I would like to mention that the great international solidarity with the people of Egypt all around the world.
Yes.
In New York, there was a demonstration 2 weeks ago. I participated in front of the United Nations building. and good number of people showed up.
Mr.
I was not
McGovern?
expecting more than 200, but when I went there and I saw over 700 people.
Really?
Egyptians from all different parts of New York State, they had come to demonstrate. So it shows the universality of feelings of the Egyptians vis-a-vis with regard to the government of Hosni Mubarak. So it was universal. A great number of people, 4 million people in Egypt, from Alexandria to Cairo to other cities, had were participating.
Were there that many, really? They were able to count that many? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's a lot.
And people around the world, not only in the United States, but all around the world, in Iran also, the students of universities, they participated in a demonstration in front of the Egyptian embassy, demanding that Mubarak should step down and give the people of Egypt the opportunity of solving their problems through their own, by their own hands.
Could I talk to that? When people, we're in a world of multimedia now and everything, and every group that comes before the camera will say, we speak for the people. How many systems of organization, or where do they come, and how does it relate into the regions of what really do speak for the people, when really you've got a lot of different peoples within each of the societies? Some speak for some speak for others, but generally there's a small plutocratic class in almost every political entity, including the international order, that has overwhelming wealth, overwhelming power, seems to have always been so. Is there something like universal democracy ever possible? Or is that a utopian dream that can never be, where you have universal justice?
That's a theoretical question. But I would like to explicitly and very clearly state that in the last 10 days that I've been watching the television and other programs through the internet, I have never heard, I haven't heard anything about 22 million workforce of Egypt, including the peasantry, the working class, the small shopkeepers. This is the major force in Egypt. How is it that in the United States is spending so many hours, but they never mentioned even once that this is the majority of the people of Egypt, and that is the peasantry, the working class, and the small shopkeepers? How is it that the media in the United States does not even mention the names of these stratas in that society?
Does the media ever mention the names of the strata of the mass of the working class other than a cliche? They're
Never.
always addressing the star of the moment.
I was expecting at least all these analyzers, economic, social, political analyzers, they would at least throw a glance at the majority of the people of that country.
Or of the world, we could say.
Or of the world.
Everywhere.
But especially
everywhere.
now, this is in action.
Okay, yeah, right. This is something that may be a spark.
This is dynamic.
Right.
How is it?
Yeah.
I'm asking. Also, what I would like to ask, what do the Americans learn from the experience of Egypt? Do they learn anything from it, or it is just a show, entertainment, like small little things here and there? Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail, or somebody hit somebody else, and they were running and they came with camels, all that. It is more like
a movie.
Movie, exactly. That's exactly what...
Reality television.
That's right. But they do not talk, they are incapable of talking about the real problems of Egypt. What are the real problems of Egypt?
Well, what are they? Are they unique to Egypt? But we'll talk to them. As you
No,
see it.
there are more to other countries,
Yeah.
but let's talk about Egypt. What happened after Abdel Nasser, that he came to power in 1952? And the aspiration of the Egyptian and the Arab people, Egypt was like a star, like a beacon in the Arab world.
And he was very Pan-African.
Had so much
Pan-Arab. He was Pan-Arab. Yeah.
Yes, and establishing socialism.
Yeah.
Arab socialism
right.
called. What happened after Nasser died? I do remember after the war between Israel and Egypt at that time, and the bombardment that the Israelis made on the
56
was. Yes, was 56, 57.
I was there the year after, in 1957. There were still bomb holes all over Port Said.
Yes.
And a lot of bad feeling toward the West.
That's correct, because the United States helped Israel to destroy.
Although it was Eisenhower.
dignity.
It was Eisenhower who stayed the hand of some of the British colonial and French colonial ambitions.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
What I was talking about is that there are domestic problems in Egypt and there are international problems.
Okay.
This determines the characteristics of this upheaval, if I would like to call it a revolution.
Okay. Well, it well may be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the characteristics of this revolution is that there are domestic grievances, and that includes needs for employment. 30% of the Egyptian workforce is unemployed.
Really, that high?
It is
that
very high. It's very high. Healthcare system doesn't exist practically. The resource of the country is channeled into building an army of 1.7 million people. Unproductive segment of a society that is engaged in consumption, but nothing in production.
Yeah.
It is a parasitic system that the United States has been happy to build in order to protect. So the domestic problems exist, but international problem. Egypt has been used as a support for Israel.
Yes, that's a big issue in the region.
Oppressing the Palestinians. The people, the Arab world, the people of Egypt, they feel it, that how their country has been used as a policeman in the area against the Arabs and in the interest of the United States foreign policy. And now this it's unbelievable that Egypt has the 10th largest army in the world.
Well, I don't know if it's so unbelievable. They get almost next to Israel. They're by far the largest. They've been bought off in a certain sense by military and other aid from the United States of America. The second most high level of aid given out next to Israel is Egypt, and consistently so since.
Egypt is a client state of the United States, is used by the United States for its own objectives.
What state in the world is not a client state of the United States? And in the Marxian analysis, if I may, those who are at the top of each of these political entities and so forth, I think the Marxists might call them running dogs, who run along with the emperor, with the the empire du jour.
Yes.
And want to be kissing the hem of that and trying to be sycophant and courtiers to those who are perceived as the rulers of the world, the United States in the modern experience since the Second War. But what state is not client state to us?
I think there are some
or are
countries
not following
in the world,
our model,
or
which our model may not be adequate
For example,
to what the future
I can
requires.
say Cuba has been following its own thinking and model of social structure, and Venezuela is trying to build such a and in Latin America, I can mention Brazil also.
Now, yeah,
It's
the new
building-
prime minister. Yeah.
is building an economy.
Evo Morales
somewhat
in Bolivia.
Bolivia,
And there's a
that's
great
right.
deal going on in the
Iran
Andean
also
area.
is building, and China is becoming stronger. Egypt upheaval is
Okay, yeah.
taking place at a time that the United States is becoming weaker
Yeah,
and weaker
right.
and weaker.
Yeah.
And in this process of getting weaker and weaker, Israel has had a share.
Okay, yeah.
Israel has blocked every sensible solution to the problems to the antagonism between a state of Israel and the countries in that area. For example, so many times President Obama says, we want to sit down and pay attention to the peace process. What does Israel do exactly in that very day or very week?
Expand the settlements.
Exactly, expand the settlement. This has been a slap on the face of Obama.
Well,
Obama
yeah.
does not know what to do, really, what to do with this
Renegade?
renegade, exactly, bad child that weakens the United States. And I think one penalty, if the United States so-called loses Egypt, or Obama loses Egypt, the United States has to clear its account with Israel, because Israel has become an impediment in reaching sensible and rational solution.
Well, I think George Ball and others, back when it was all being decided, really thought that it was not a very good idea for us to cast our lot with that. But the lobbying effort and the public relations effort on the part of people who were Zionists and so forth was very effective. Our system has room for that kind of thing. In a certain sense, you've got to give them credit for being very, very effective in capturing the support of the United States of America almost unquestionably, and with a great deal of access to and manipulation of the media and the mindset of the American people to the idea that the two are inseparable. So they were very successful, and in a certain sense, you don't want to condemn successful public relations and political manipulation of the American conscience, but they have been successful that way, and they've been very successful.
The basis of their strength is a class in the United States itself. And the Republican Party is the political expression of that class.
Okay, you think so? Yeah.
And
okay,
that is especially not that the Democrats aren't.
Yeah, they both are in the same ballpark.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, right.
But the Republicans especially are very active in putting a foreign policy forward that at any cost Israel has to be supported, even if it becomes
a detriment to our interests.
Exactly.
Right.
And thank you.
And that seems to be the case. And so they pulled it off.
Yes.
In a certain sense, in realpolitik, they've been very successful.
But the people of the United States are becoming aware that support for Israel at any cost is going to be very costly.
Well,
very,
I think
very costly.
it seems to me the way the Netanyahu and so forth, I don't think they think it makes any difference what the people of the United States think. They don't want to trust the Goyim at any level. They're going to do what they want because they're a superpower. They have overwhelming power. They can do whatever they want, much like the European settlers could do anything they wanted with the indigenous people of this new world.
Right.
They have overwhelming power, so if you have overwhelming power, you can do whatever you want. Don't care what you think about. We're going to expand, and that's the attitude they seem to have assumed.
I really want to deal with basic, with basic concept of liberal democracy.
Okay.
Because you listen every day, day and night, the talking heads of NBC, CNN. They all think that they have a solution to the problem of Egypt, and that is a little more democracy and a little more reform in that country.
Yeah.
Is this really
or is it more systemic, perhaps? Yeah.
It is much more systemic
yes, sir.
than just political democracy. If you ask that 22 million people in Egypt, I'm referring to the peasants, I'm referring to the farmers and the workers and the small shopkeepers and the employees of the government in the civil servants. Their problem is really lack of liberal democracy?
Interesting, yeah. Are those figures characteristic of the world writ large? Are some places the working class, the basis of it here in the United States, don't want to get back to Egypt and back to that, but I mean the labor union movement and the labor representation is down to about 5% or 6% of the private sector as any labor representation. A labor solidarity forever that people talked about in Roosevelt's day and so forth seems not to hold. The multinational corporations who have all the ownership of the capital can move with great adroitness anywhere in the world, exploit slave labor anywhere, violate environmental prescriptions against what they do and so forth, seem to be operating with wild abandon, with no thought about the masses of the people at all, except how can you just maybe stave off them ever rising up like they did in Egypt, maybe.
You must have been listening to the television and radio and news channels. Have they ever talked about labor unions?
No, I didn't hear a word, did you? No, you didn't hear anything about those people?
No labor unions.
But people aren't interested in the people. The people are interested in who's got the power. Right. And they can relate one to the, it's like royal courtiers in dynastic state Europe.
The
they relate to one another,
States
and the people are like
disservice to the people of the United States
or the world, because it's a worldwide thing.
Right.
In China, Western China, it's horrible. All over the world, it's horrible. Even in the
coming
United
back
States,
to Egypt.
Okay, come back.
Okay,
to Egypt.
this
Keep
is
me
dynamic.
grounded, brother.
That's what we are discussing and analyzing. That is why the media of the United States does not pay attention to the essentials of a social structure of Egypt, and that is laboring classes,
right,
and labor unions. Are there labor unions? Let me tell you, when in a society, a small section, a minority, a few million people, exploit a great majority, and the great majority understands it that it's getting exploited.
Well, a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they don't, but go ahead.
A lot of times they don't.
They can have the wool pulled over their eyes.
But in order to continue this process of exploitation, what do? They establish dictatorship. Sometimes the dictatorships are very open, very brazen, but sometimes could be done under bourgeois democracy. Under democracy, you can have the dictatorship of democracy. And that is the mechanism of election. And the machinery of the election is governed by the banking system, by the insurance company, by the rich.
Now it is,
rich can get into the Congress. The Congress of the United
Only
States
the rich, really.
Only the rich.
Realistically,
Exactly. So this is the dictatorship of the democracy, if we want to say. And democracy, if democracy means only an election.
Right.
If election,
the terms of which are all set by the people with the money.
Yes, exactly. Right.
So it's a courtier's game.
But the problem of the Egyptian people goes far beyond liberal democracy.
I hear you, but I want to just stress the problem of the people of the world. I want to say come back to Egypt, but it's the problem of the whole world, and that may be why the whole world is worried, because there may be a stirring of the people in a real literal sense that have been not well treated throughout all of history and are still not well treated, and those who own everything do not have a system that's going to be able to make it possible to have a real world that the future requires. It may be a real large revolution.
I admire the abstraction. I admire the universality
let's come back
of
to
your
Egypt.
views. Yeah, in Egypt, the problem is more fundamental.
Okay, okay.
It is, if I want to put it outright, it is a social, it's a class relationship.
Yeah, okay.
Within that country, that a small minority owns great amount of the wealth of that country.
No, everywhere.
In Egypt, 10% of the population on the top consumes 25% of the gross domestic product of that country.
What about the wealth?
While 40% on the bottom consumes less than 12%, 14, 13% of the production of that country. That is a problem.
Do we have adequate statistics to measure that for each of the countries of the world, including Egypt?
That we can find out. That's not, it's not hard. But I have the statistics for Egypt.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good. Keep
Egypt is a class society, and distribution of income between different stratas of society are sharply different.
Yeah.
According to a survey of 1995, 10% of the highest echelon of the Egyptian society consumes 25% of the gross domestic product of that country.
Wow.
Highest 20% uses 39% of the gross domestic product, while the 10% on the bottom uses only 4.4% of the gross domestic product. And 20% on the lower echelon of the society uses only 9.8% of the of the gross domestic product. This is a problem. Why Anderson in CNN, who runs around, and he might be even a good person himself, but goes around and never sees the masses of oppressed masses, the poor masses on the bottom who are throwing a stone, but they don't have any kind of organization. How is it in a country that a political party is not allowed to form?
Right. Okay,
but
American
media has spent half of the time talking against Muslim Brotherhood. What is it, the problem with Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, you got a lot of propaganda up on the side of the Muslim Brotherhood being the bad guys of the world who want to destroy, countries like Israel.
Who should decide what kind of government should rule in Egypt when CNN and the White House and the State Department and Mrs. Clinton and former Defense Minister William, what's his last name? Cohen. William Cohen. Practically, they said that the army should crack down on the demonstrators. The second day.
All right.
Yes, the second day that they thought they can put it down, and it's a small number, 100,000, 200,000.
Well, the Roman had their legions, didn't they, to put down any kind of uprising, to keep them in their place.
Oh, you're such a great historian.
Well, isn't that
I don't have that depth.
Yeah.
But
no, but it's true, and it still is. Kerry, what the point? I like those figures. I really appreciate that. I'm just saying that it's more characteristics, and it could be a spark that has wider implications beyond Egypt, into other countries of that region, and into the countries of the world. We have great changes that are needed if we're going to get anything like justice to the mass of the people that you're talking about in Egypt. It's the same in varying degrees in all the world. I don't want to
changes. No, that's okay. Thank you. The changes in Northern Africa has deep implications. For the power of the United States. The changes, whatever the result is at the end, maybe after a year or two, the United States comes out of this weaker than ever before, because cannot intervene. The intervention of the United States into Egypt or Tunisia or even Jordan, which is in the brink of breaking up.
Jordan?
There's a demonstration. There was a demonstration.
Yeah, I know. It's
the king promised it put aside some of the cabinet members and and chose somebody else to be a prime minister. Vice president of that country. All these changes are taking place. At the end, the United States would be much weaker in the Middle East than ever before. And this has an implication. It is very interesting it is good to mention that all these political upheavals are taking place at a time that there is economic crisis of the world capitalist conditions.
Yeah, that's interesting in itself. That's the context.
That is the context. Beautiful. Yeah, you put it right. That is the context that at the time that the capitalist mode of production is facing continuous crisis. Systemic.
Yes.
Exactly. That cannot be solved with monetary juggling and monetary introduction.
Or the nostrums being put forth by their so-called leadership. They do not have a vision adequate to what the future requires now allows.
They cannot.
We do not have a system it cannot address what the future requires.
They cannot have the vision.
Okay.
It is,
and they're not coming forth with it. I don't know where they are. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Egypt is ranked 119th out of 173, where in terms of people being under the poverty line. It is...
those figures are from where, if I may?
Different sources.
Different sources?
Yes.
Okay, well, those are figures that can be gathered into
large section of the population lives on less than $2 a day.
Which percentage did you say?
That is a large percentage. Probably the figure varies from $2 to $4.
Yeah.
If I was going to state the $4 daily, then I would use that the majority of the Egyptians are in that bracket of $4 a day. Imagine what you do with the international prices. Prices today are international, are global.
That's right.
It is not just limited to Egypt itself, like 200 years ago.
Sure, right.
You buy cotton internationally, you buy machinery internationally, and the price of international dictated by the big markets in the developed capitalist countries imposes itself on the people of those countries. Imagine what do you do? What can you do with $4 a day for a family?
Yeah, exactly right. And increasingly, in terms of history, increasingly it's the capital instruments of technology that is becoming in ratio with labor overwhelmingly more responsible for production, and the concentration of the ownership of capital assets is becoming greater all the time at a small plutocratic class in the world and in Egypt and in the United States and everywhere else. And that's the only way they have to distribute any income to people to buy $4 or $10 or $20 or $100 a day, whatever. It's through their having some sort of a labor participation in a productive system that is overwhelmingly capital intensive and trending that way, and they don't have a solution for that. Mr. Keynes said you're not going to have any ability to clear the market. People can't buy what you're capable of producing.
That is at the center of this crisis.
Seems that way to me.
And as long as the majority of people cannot purchase the products that
can be produced,
that capitalist mode of production
or the world economy
is capable of producing, we face crisis. The begins with banking crisis,
Right.
financial crisis, and leads into industrial and economic crisis.
And we don't want the world system to collapse. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
Of
that
course
would be
we don't.
overwhelmingly the things that Mr. Obama did probably had to be done to stop
Yes.
it and all that sort of thing. As inequitable as it happens to see the Goldman Sachs people getting great bonuses and so forth, and people voting down, trying to attack Social Security and all the kinds of things we happening in this country and in the world, you know, but you know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question.
We had to save this system, I guess, so that it can be subsumed, but what we should be looking for is the answer or the system that the future requires that subsumes the old outdated institutions we're reifying and builds and gives a vision of the future that is more tending toward some sort of a liberated order for everybody, including the masses.
In the
which
present
it never has.
upheaval in Egypt, I would like to ask you,
Yes,
who is the biggest loser?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I really don't know. We don't know how it's going to come out, do we? What's
In
going to
any
happen?
way
You have
that-
some experience. What's going to happen in Egypt? Where they're coming
Okay.
in with camels like Lawrence?
I'll-
Are they going to be able to assert that kind of power against this uprising that went for 6 days and all the world was looking for Egypt maybe to go the way of Tunisia or something, and then all of a sudden thugs come in and they put it out, and so then it'll go away in a couple of weeks and everybody will go back to being, compliant slaves like the people who have the power. Do you understand what I'm saying?
The great
who is it?
loser of this second Arab revolt.
Okay.
The first being Tunisia, and
Oh.
Egypt is the second one, is the United States.
Okay, talk to me. Spell it out.
United States
What do you
is
see?
the configuration, the planning, the structure that the United States had built in Northern Africa, and hiring these client states and the regimes like Hosni Mubarak, like Abdullah in Saudi Arabia, like the son of in Jordan, that young man.
Yeah, Hussein.
All these client states are shaking up.
Yeah,
They are getting shattered.
they're all client states.
That's correct.
No, they're all client states of the modern Rome.
Of-
And they're all
of the-
kissing the hem of that and trying to be able to be sycophant to that, and that is being shaken.
Okay, let
That's
me
what's
ask you
being
the
shaken,
second
perhaps,
question.
yeah.
Who is the greatest winner in the changes in North Africa?
The changes that we see in the news this time, I will hopefully it's going to be perhaps the vast masses of the world that are finally going to be able to have the vision of a equitable and appropriate fair deal for the masses of the world.
I like your
One
answer.
would help.
I like your answers.
That would be
You
my
know
hope
that.
and wish, yeah.
Yes, that the greatest winner would be the Arab masses, especially the people of Egypt and the people of Tunisia and the people of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. I think the struggle against imperialism would sharpen in that area with the success of the revolution in Egypt.
Yes,
With the success of revolution. Now, whether the outcome, we'll talk about the outcome also, but one of the winners in this struggle is Iran.
Okay, talk about that. You're very familiar.
Iran showed the road to
standing up.
to the Arab masses.
Yeah, right.
That if you stand up,
Uh-huh.
you may have a chance of coming out of this misery imposed by the dependent regimes on the United States.
The running dogs.
The running dogs. And the people of Egypt are learning after 30 years that if Iran can stand up
Yeah.
to Washington, why can't 80 million population of Egypt? So they are learning, and I saw that on the Press TV and Fars News Agency of Iran. Completely they support the people of Egypt and against Mubarak. Maybe we want to talk about what the outcome's going to be.
Well, I would like to know. Do you have your crystal ball? I mean, you know, if it were Europe in 1940, you would think Hitler had it all in his palm of his hand, and he could just. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
History is a very strange and mutable thing.
It is very unexpected. Things take place.
Yesterday, I was glued to the television. Everybody talking about. Today, I watched it. It was just old news about who went back into rehab. On news. I mean, some star. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
They don't seem to be covering. How is it going to play out, do you think? You have a good feel for the region.
There are
both east and west
four
of
alternatives.
Egypt, yeah.
Four alternatives. The first alternative, that Hosni Mubarak stays there and the condition of revolution deteriorates. People get tired. They're hungry. There's no water. Electricity goes out, and there are no work that they can earn money, and the prices have risen. Inflation is like 30% in that country, or 20 at least, and so
staggering.
One way that the first alternative would be Mubarak stays there, the situation deteriorates, and the condition of the revolution deteriorates, and
goes back to the old order.
Gradually goes a sort of shallow reforms are done within the government. That is number one.
His son could follow him, maybe?
Yes.
September,
no, it's beyond that.
You think it's beyond? Okay.
It's
I'm glad to see there's some limits to
yeah, it's beyond that. He cannot come, as a matter of fact.
Okay, that's one. What's the second? What's the second alternative?
Within the same alternative is that the military of Egypt is looking at this upheaval as threat and opportunity.
Okay, that's interesting.
A section of the generals, they would like to see that they can use this social crisis in their own interest of putting their men, not Mubarak anymore, but their own men in power.
Are you aware of the inner workings of those Byzantine arrangements of power in Egypt?
Yes.
Are you aware of some of the players, as they would say?
That's right. Suleiman is the first choice of that the United States is happy about, and he is the head of the intelligence service.
Yeah, I understand.
And very vicious animals they are. So they are grooming Suleiman to more or less ease out Mr. Mubarak and come to power.
Well, he's already said he won't go again after September if he's there, but is he going to... Well, anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Another alternative within the military solution,
still within,
which is still alternative one, is a coup by a group of generals and taking power and opening fire on the demonstrators.
Any chance of lower-level officers, younger officers, instead of general officers, tend to be old and more
Yes, that is another alternative.
Yeah,
because
it often happens that way in history.
Nasser came from colonel.
The country to his west, Libya, it was, in 1969, was Mr. Gaddafi was there, and I see that he seems to be holding well in the midst of all this. We're going to talk about with Coley Clark, our friend. We're going to do a program.
I'm going to move from the military solution, the general solution, the status quo solution, to the solution of, if it goes rationally, would be an election. Let's say a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, the United States somehow pressures Mubarak.
They have real election?
Real election.
They haven't had them in the past.
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
An election, an average election, in which Mr. Mohammed al-Baradi, the head of the IAEA, International Atomic Energy, he would be elected. That's another alternative. The third alternative would be that there would be an election, and the Islamic Brotherhood, they get elected they have the majority. They have a history of 100 years, this society. The United States and Israel especially are against that kind of solution that
there is a liberal wing of the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's correct.
Yeah, there is.
As a matter of fact, Muslim Brotherhood...
Progressive. It could be even seen as progressive within an Islamic
Muslim
context.
Brotherhood has been working...
Because we're submitted to a propaganda barrage about Muslim is bad, like commies used to be bad.
This is
remember?
such it really works against any kind of intelligence, intelligent understanding for the American people.
I heard a program from 20 years ago with Vance Packard, remember, the hidden persuaders, how much the people can be manipulated by media and so forth. And it is sad.
It is sad that the Zionists have so much influence in this country.
Well, the Zionists and the capitalists
and the
running dogs.
And the running dogs. That they immediately, day one, they started talking against Muslim Brotherhood. What is it with Muslim Brotherhood that they're afraid of?
Well, what would they be afraid of? The street getting some sort of a say in things, and the street not agreeing with the idea that the whole world has to just let Israel do whatever they want to do and do settlements and push and say, the hell with you, world, we're going to do whatever we want.
I appreciate of what you just said.
That's what they might be afraid of.
Your understanding is a deep understanding. I have some knowledge of Islamic Brotherhood.
You sure do. I know that from
I've studied to see what are the possible, what is the nature of it. Is it the same as Iranian Islamic group or Islamic government, or it is somewhat different? I realized that in the last 10 years, they have worked so hard to establish labor unions in Egypt. And also they participated in the electoral process. And 50 representatives, people from the Islamic, they got elected to the parliament of Egypt.
Really? Okay.
And this is so touching that when Mubarak stopped these representatives who were elected from attending the parliament, the Islamic Brotherhood did not go wild, you know, creating havoc or killing or shooting like many decades
ago. They dug in
ago.
for the long haul.
Yes, they do. They are
that
very
long haul
sophisticated.
end may be becoming,
They are very sophisticated.
Across the Arab world, maybe.
That's correct. They are very sophisticated. They know that the process has to mature itself. And the people of Egypt and the people of different countries see that the solution that they offer is much better than the solution that Washington has imposed on their country.
And the time for opening that old bottle of Napoleon brandy may be about now. It is matured. It is well matured. It is opened. It's been already breathed. Let's bring that out now. Revolution.
One of the alternatives would be the election in an election where al-Baradi and the Muslim Brotherhood together. Already al-Baradi has expressed his desire to cooperate with the Muslim Brotherhood. This is the most rational solution to the problem of Egypt. And I hope...
So that election would come in September in the normal course of events as you see it, or are you talking about something else? You'd have to...
that would be like 7-8 months from now.
I know. Well, that's what Mr. Mubarak's talking about.
He will
bridge over troubled waters.
The people of Egypt cannot tolerate one more day, one more month of the military rule in
or lose
country.
The impetus that has been so bottled up.
Exactly.
It'd be like trying to put a Coca-Cola bottle back cap on.
Yes, so these are the alternatives.
It for 10 years.
What do you think about the alternatives?
Well, you don't want to talk to me. I think that there may be, I tend to see things a little, I'd be interested, actually, this is with you, Ardeshir. Where does Iran fit in? And the view of things from Tehran and from there, because you have a good feeling of that. I tend to deal with things like the evolution of consciousness and the ice ages, and the thing, and that we're and that the whole of history is a nightmare of injustice from which we're trying to awaken, and that we may be a time of an awakening of elemental justice for all human beings and the ecology in a way that's totally unique in terms of all of human history. So that's where I hang out.
Okay.
So that's not very practical.
Let me deal with
but
the
what
concept
about Iran?
of democracy.
Okay.
I'll talk about Iran. The concept of democracy.
We got about 11 minutes left.
As long as it was offered, the promises offered to the people in Eastern Europe, United States made some success by attracting some of those countries to the orbit of capitalist relations. And not that they are much better off, because the condition of health and education in those countries is much to be desired. But the promise of democracy that Obama made to the people of Egypt almost a year ago.
At Cairo.
Exactly, in Cairo. But did nothing about it.
Well, okay, he's been restrained.
But he practically reverted to the old methods. He talked about democracy, but supported dictatorships.
Well, what else have you got in the world? Really, if you're really being real, that's all you've got in the world. It's all a small group who runs everything. You don't have any real democracy anywhere.
For President Obama to say that Mubarak is one of the greatest democratic leaders in our time, just 6 months ago, is amazing.
Well, these courtiers say that to one another, much as they did at Versailles with Louis XIV.
But people take it seriously.
And doing,
yeah, people
minuets.
take it seriously.
Well, okay, yeah.
I do remember the same statement, the same practically sentence was made by President Carter to the Shah of Iran.
Right,
okay?
right.
That's really, I want to ask this question. Does Washington really care about democracy? If it did care about democracy, then why in 1953 overthrew government of Mossadegh, and why in 1967 put down Egypt to the extent that people of Egypt today remember what the United States did with the hands of the Zionists in Tel Aviv, destroyed the pride of people of Egypt.
I go to James Joyce. History is a nightmare, largely of, I'll over the dictum, largely of injustice, from which we're attempting to awaken. We haven't awakened from a history. Democracy, real true democracy and liberation of the human spirit for everybody to be able to be liberated from authoritarian constrictures and so forth, is a thing still of the future, but it may be dawning now. That's my sense. It's always been unjust. It's always been a few people would win. The American Indians had no chance against somebody who has a stronger military capability to conquer them and so forth. And so I don't find it unusual that these kind of things goes on, but we're coming to a time, Ardeshir, I don't mean to bring it up, I bring it up, people get bored. We live at a time where the weapon systems, the extension of consciousness, which is unique to Homo sapiens, are now species lethal. Since about 1970. They've been species lethal. There's a new existential reality in the universe. It's not just wiping out the other tribe and stealing all their grain and putting them in slavery like it has been out of history in the name of realpolitik. It's a new ball game. And on the positive side of that, we can take care of everybody now. We have actually, at the level of capability, transcended material scarcity for all of the world's civilization within an ecological context with the nanotechnology, things that are coming, and we have outdated institutions all predicated upon there's not nearly enough. For me to win, you have to lose. For our tribe to get strong, you have to get weak, all of that. And it's called realpolitik, and it's outdated. And our intellectual leadership is falling down on the job of tuning into that new reality. And until we do begin to tune into that new reality at the level of capability, we're still going to be just reifying outdated institutions. That's my thought.
Okay. I have one point, and that is when the ruling class of the United States is looking at the situation in North Africa, would they come to a conclusion that their policies and their plans for that part of the world has been damaging to the social system of those countries, has been working against the people of those countries, or they think that repetition of the same thing, strengthening dictatorships, unleashing an attack by the central government on the people of Cairo, Egypt.
They did
that,
so. Go ahead,
that would be the solution.
Well, they did it also. I think that if they look to North Africa, you bring it up. I personally, the opinion, I'm not sure, but I'm of the opinion that they could look to the country of Libya as a potential where he may have been ahead of history's curve the same way the United States of America was ahead of history's curve given the Enlightenment coming out of feudalism, with the establishment of a political order in keeping with the future, because I think he had ways of organizing. I saw he suggested to the people of Tunisia they ought to set up a Jamahiriya, a state of the masses society, where not only is the political process made participatory by everybody, but also the capital assets are owned by the people who are part of the companies rather than only wage earners. Beyond the wage earning nostrum of the only way to distribute income to the masses of the people, while all the capital assets are owned by a tiny class, have to be owned by the people as a way of distributing income. I think he's ahead of the curve, possibly.
Okay.
So that's where I would look.
But any time I hear that a leader, whether Western leader or Eastern leader or in Africa, he has a plan for the masses of people, I look at it with suspicion.
With a great deal of suspicion.
Great deal of suspicion,
I do that
because
the
role of the masses is ignored here.
Everywhere it is.
Therefore,
is there any place it is not, except as a matter of public relations manipulation? Is there any place where it's not?
There are degrees to it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Somebody who
Mossadegh was a good guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was on the street at that time.
I know you were.
And if the United States really cared about democracy, should have helped, not overthrow.
Yeah, right.
But should have helped Dr. Mossadegh to establish a democratic bourgeois state. Don't forget it.
And there may be hope we can do that. Let's hope in the name of everything that can happen. We've run right out of time. That's a problem. Ardeshir, it's so good to see you. You're so lucky. You're such a good guy.
Thank you,
American, is it Iranian-American Friendship Society? And it's a really important institution. We ought to understand the world has to understand on this time. It's really something. Thanks for coming in and shedding so much light on the current situation.
Thank you for inviting me. Those who are interested to know what the American